That ended so abruptly.
Well, some stories do.
Some stories do. All right,
That's the end of
Nick.
the episode.
My fellow Americans.
Well, I'm not a crook. I've earned everything I've got.
A man holds in his mortal hand the power to abolish all forms of human poverty and all forms of human life.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
One day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character.
He says, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." I suppose we all thought that.
Hello and welcome to As the World Burns. We're back for another spellbinding, shell-shocking, and cease-firing episode of this show. And we're going to see how it goes. We'll see how long the ceasefire lasts on this show.
Yeah, he said that he's giving it 2 more weeks.
Yeah, he decided to tell everybody that, he was going to wipe this entire civilization, quote unquote, off the face of the earth, And then he's like, "No, I'll give him 2 more weeks," right before the deadline. And then I think it was the ceasefire. I think was only between the United States and Iran.
That country and the other person are still fighting.
Yeah, exactly. You said it. But that country and that other person. But yeah, so that's what's going on in the world today. There's something wrong with the world today, and I don't know what it is. To quote Aerosmith, we're living on the edge. But anyways, today is not about World War III and the upcoming apocalypse. Today we're going to dive into our past apocalypse a little bit, and we're going to look at some people that are just interesting individuals. So yeah,
That's what we're doing.
That's what we're doing. All right, number one, we should probably just talk about Peter Khoury, right? This is how I got the anti-host interested in doing this episode today is first up on the list, this guy, Peter Khoury, a very interesting individual. So Peter Khoury is coming from Adventurous Ear 9433. This is his breakdown of the Peter Khoury story. I didn't mean to rhyme that time.
The Tale of Peter Khoury.
It's the Tale of Peter Khoury. All right. Peter Khoury, the subject of this case, was born in Lebanon in 1964 and moved to Australia in 1973. There he met his future wife Vivian at school in 1981. Peter and Vivian were married in 1990 and now have 2 children. They live in Sydney. Peter works in the building trades and has owned his own business in cement rendering. Peter and Vivian had their first UFO experience in February 1988. A simple sighting of unusual moving lights, but in July of that year, while lying on his bed, he felt something grab his ankles. He suddenly felt numb and paralyzed, but remained conscious. Then he noticed 3 or 4 small hooded figures alongside the bed. He experienced telepathic communication with one or more of these beings. He was told to relax and not be afraid because it would be like last time.
Meaning this happened to him before and he doesn't remember it?
Apparently. He then saw that they were about to insert a long needle into the side of his head, whereupon he blacked out. He jolted awake sometime later, leaped out of bed, and ran into the living room where he found his father and brother apparently dozing. Both he and his brother felt that only 10 minutes had passed since they had been awake, but they soon realized that an hour or more had passed. The next morning, Peter and Vivian noticed that there was an obvious puncture mark on the side of his head, without a trace of dried blood. At this time, Peter had never heard of alien abductions. His memories were vivid and alarming, but he could find neither answers nor comfort from friends and acquaintances. Then, some months later, he and Vivian drove by a roadside billboard with an image of Whitley Strieber's book, Communion, and they immediately got the book. Peter found numerous details in Strieber's account that matched his own strange experience. A group of scientists willing to work on UFO-related research analyzed the DNA by a process called... I guess I missed the part where they said about the DNA, but... so here's the idea is that apparently a blonde hair was left over at the scene of the abduction, alien abduction, so to speak. And it was tied around this dude's member. So that's a thing.
Did they check the DNA on the hair?
So that's what this is getting into. A group of scientists willing to work on UFO-related research analyzed the DNA by a process called polymerase chain reaction amplification, sequencing of mitochondrial DNA that might be recovered from Peter Khoury's hair sample. A number of well-known abduction cases have involved human-looking beings with hair, including the 1975 abduction reported by Travis Walton in Arizona and the 1957 Brazilian abduction reported by Antonio Villas-Boas. Peter Khoury's case has some similarity to that of Villas-Boas, who said that he was forced to have sex with an aggressive humanoid female aboard a landed UFO. Suddenly, he bolted wide awake and sat up. There were two humanoid females sitting on the bed, both entirely naked. These two women looked human in nearly every way. They had well-proportioned adult bodies. One looked somewhat Asian with straight dark shoulder-length hair and dark eyes. The other looked perhaps Scandinavian with light-colored, maybe bluish eyes and long blonde hair that fell halfway down her back. Her hair was especially notable to Peter Khoury. I'd never seen a hairstyle like that. It was curled something like Farrah Fawcett, but to an extreme. It just looked really exotic in a way, he told Chalker, but Khoury felt that these women were not exactly human. Their faces were somewhat odd, not unattractive, but too chiseled, with very high cheekbones and eyes that were 2 or 3 times larger than normal. Khoury took special notice of the blonde. Her face was too long, he felt. I've never seen a human looking like that, he said. The blonde, who was sitting in a kneeling position on the bed, seemed to be in charge. Khoury thought she was communicating telepathically with the dark-haired woman who was sitting with her legs partially folded under her. There was something stiff, almost blank, in the expressions of the women, Khoury thought. Though stunned by the sudden appearance of the women, Khoury had only a few moments to consider how they could possibly have arrived in his bedroom before the blonde reached out with both her hands and cupped the back of his head, drawing his face toward her chest. He resisted. She pulled harder. He kept pulling back. She was pretty strong, he told Chalker. She pulled me over, and my mouth was basically...
Hold on.
Yep.
Is this guy married?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So he's a good man.
Yeah.
He's a good man. He's a good person.
He goes, yeah, he is. He goes, and I bit...
Continue.
Khoury said he doesn't know why he bit the woman, but even though he felt a small... Whoa, that's weird. She did not cry out, but the expression on her face was like, this isn't the way. In a way, it was shock or confusion. She looked at the other one and looked at me like, this isn't the way it's supposed to happen. You've done this wrong. The blonde hairs were extremely thin and almost clear in color, and it was determined that the hair was chemically treated.
Do you think that they were like shocked or like, wait, what? No one's ever rejected us.
Maybe.
You think that's what it is?
Maybe.
Like, wait, what? You don't like this?
Maybe it's also like them not understanding like human nature and thinking that it would be something that the human would want, you know?
Yeah. Just assuming.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's see. It was determined the hair was not chemically treated because there had been little or no mitochondrial DNA could have been recovered. However, using
hold on. You know why Peter Khoury's name sounds so funny to me?
Why?
Because the man from Kentucky was talking about Miles Khoury.
Oh yeah. No, I thought about that dude like when he was talking about it. I was like, yeah.
Miles Khoury.
Literally. And maybe we should talk about Miles Khoury at some point in this too, because Miles Khoury seems like an interesting character too.
I don't even remember who that was. I remember I looked it up and it's like a basketball player.
Well, that's one of the ones, but the guy that he was talking about was this dude that got stoned in the Salem witch trials, apparently. Yeah. That's why he kept making like getting stoned jokes and like stuff like that, like getting stoned like Miles Khoury. So for comparison, samples were also taken of Peter Khoury's hair and that of his wife Vivian. DNA was successfully extracted from Peter's hair, but no usable DNA was recovered from Vivian's hair, possibly because of chemical treatment. After thorough testing of the hair samples, the scientists of the Anomaly Physical Evidence Group arrived at a startling conclusion. The thin blonde hair, which appeared to have come from a light-skinned Caucasian-type woman, could not have come from a normal human of that racial type. Instead, though human, the hair showed 5 distinctive DNA markers. A detailed survey of the literature on variations in mitochondrial DNA, comprising tens of thousands of samples, showed only 4 other people on record with all 5 of the distinctive markers in the blonde hair. All 4 were Chinese with black hair. Mitochondrial DNA is passed only from mother to child, and therefore offers a means of tracing ancient ancestry on the mother's side. The findings suggest that all 4 of the Chinese subjects share a common female ancestor with the blonde woman. but there is no easy explanation for how this could be. It undeniably exists, and thorough forensic testing shows that it is anomalous. It seems that no person with blonde hair and an exact DNA match to Khoury's blonde could be found in Sydney or the continent of Australia. That is pretty wild. Interesting. Alright. Who else do we got next? Did we ever end up talking about Jack Parsons?
We've talked about him before.
Yeah, did we ever, like, tell people who he actually is?
Yeah.
Alright. Robert David Steele. Who's this?
If you want to talk about Jack Parsons, you can. You've definitely talked about it before.
Yeah. I forget if we've read, like, from the Wikipedia page about the dude.
Read his Wikipedia.
Let's see. Alright, just in case we haven't fully talked about this guy before, we're gonna just real quick talk about Jack Parsons. Amateur rocket scientist turned into Thelemite occultist. You know, that's pretty cool. Rocket engineer, that's the word. Let's see. He got into rockets. Interesting guy. Started doing rockets out in the desert, and then suddenly he started getting into sex magic. So that's where this kind of comes in. In January 1939, John and Frances Baxter, brother and sister who had befriended Jack and Helen Parsons, took Jack to the Church of Thelema on Winona Boulevard, Hollywood, where he witnessed the performance of the Gnostic Mass. Celebrants of the church had included Hollywood actor John Carradine and gay rights activist Harry Hay. Parsons was intrigued, having already heard of Thelema's founder and outer head of Ordo Templi Orientis, Aleister Crowley, after reading a copy of Crowley's text, Conks on Pax. Parsons was introduced to leading members Regina Call, Jane Wolfe, and Wilfred Talbot Smith at the Mass. Feeling both repulsion and attraction for Smith, Parsons continued to sporadically attend the church's events for a year. He continued to read Crowley's works, which increasingly interested him, and encouraged Helen to read them. Parsons came to believe the reality of Thelemic magic as a force that could be explained through quantum physics. He tried to interest his friends and acquaintances in Thelema, taking science fiction writers Jack Williamson and Steve Cartmill to performance the Gnostic Mass. Although they were unimpressed, Parsons was more successful with Grady Lewis McMurtry, a young Caltech student he had befriended, as well as McMurtry's fiancée Claire Palmer and Helen's sister Sarah Betty Northrup. Jack and Helen were initiated in the Agape Lodge. Jack and Helen were initiated in the Agape Lodge, renamed the Church of Thelema, in February 1941. Parsons adopted the Thelemic motto of Thelema Obtentium Proedero Amoris Nuptiae, a Latin mistranslation of the establishment of Thelema through the rituals of love. Thelema. Is it Thelema or Thelema?
Either or.
Have I been saying it right or wrong this whole time? The initials of this motto spelled out Topan also served as the declaration Tupan. Commenting on Parsons' errors of translation, in jest, Crowley said that the motto which you mention is couched in a language beyond my powers of understanding. Parsons also adopted the Thelemic title Frater, Tupan with Topan, represented in Kabbalistic numerology as 210, the name which he frequently signed letters to occult associates. While Helen became known as Soror Grimad, Smith wrote to Crowley saying that Parsons was a really excellent man. He has an excellent mind and much better intellect than myself. JP is going to be very valuable. Wolfe wrote to German Auto Representative Karl Germer that Parsons was an A1 man. Crowley-esque in attainment, as a matter of fact, and mooted Parsons as a potential successor to Crowley as an outer head of the order. Crowley concurred with such assessments, informing Smith that Parsons is the most valued member of the whole order with no exception. Upon Carmen's suggestion, Frank Molina approached the National Academy of Sciences Committee on Army Air Corps Research to request funding for research in what they referred to as jet propulsion, a term chosen to avoid the stigma attached to rocketry. The military were interested in jet propulsion as a means of getting aircraft quickly airborne where there was insufficient room for a full-length runway, and gave the Rocket Research Group $1,000 to put together a proposal on the feasibility of jet-assisted takeoff. by June 1939, making Parsons et al. The first U.S. government-sanctioned rocket research group. Since their formation in 1934, they had also performed experiments involving model black powder motor-propelled multi-stage rockets. In a research paper submitted to the American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics, Parsons reported these rockets reaching exhaust velocities of 4,875 miles per hour, thereby demonstrating the potential of solid fuels to be more effective than the liquid types primarily preferred by researchers such as Goddard. All right, where else do they get more into the other stuff? Performed rockets in the 40s. Basically, this guy was like the precursor to NASA. He was beloved by Aleister Crowley, and at a certain point, he hung out with L. Ron Hubbard. Now disassociated from JPL and Aerojet, Parsons and Foreman founded the Ad Astra Engineering Company, under which Parsons founded the chemical manufacturing Vulcan Powder Company. Ad Astra was subject to an FBI investigation under suspicion of an espionage when security agents from the Manhattan Project discovered that Parsons and Foreman procured a chemical used in a top-secret project for a material known as X-metal. They were later acquitted of any wrongdoing. That's crazy. L. Ron Hubbard soon moved into the parsonage, and he and Parsons became close friends, and Parsons wrote to Crowley that although Hubbard had no formal training in magic, he was an extraordinary amount of experience and understanding in the field. Yeah, all right. I'll just get into how he died.
Did he blow up?
I forgot. It was mysterious.
Was it?
Parsons' death in 1952. Parsons and Cameron decided to travel to Mexico for a few months, both for a vacation and for Parsons to take up a job opportunity establishing an explosive factory for the Mexican government. They hoped that this would facilitate a move to Israel where they could start a family and where Parsons could bypass the U.S. government and recommence his rocketry career. Whoa. He was particularly disturbed by the presence of the FBI and convinced that they were spying on him. On June 17, 1952, a day before their planned departure, Parsons received a rush order of a film set and began to work on it on his home laboratory. An explosion destroyed the lower part of the building, during which Parsons sustained mortal wounds. His right forearm was severed, his legs, his left arm were broken, and a hole was torn in the right side of his face. Despite these critical injuries, Parsons was found conscious by the upstairs lodgers. He tried to communicate with the arriving ambulance workers who rushed him to the Huntington Memorial Hospital, where he was declared dead approximately 37 minutes later after the explosion. When his mother, Ruth... What is it?
He did blow up.
Yeah, he did. That's great. That's true. When his mother, Ruth, learned of his death, she immediately took a fatal overdose of barbiturates. That's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, that's nuts. Pasadena Police Department criminologist Don Harding led the official investigation. He concluded that Parsons had been mixing fulminate of mercury in a coffee can when he dropped it on the floor, causing an initial explosion that triggered a larger blast, among other chemicals in the room. Foreman considered this likely, stating that Parsons often had sweaty hands and could easily have dropped the can. Some of Parsons' colleagues rejected this explanation, saying he was very attentive about safety. Two colleagues
he had
from
real
the...
sweaty hands because he probably thought someone was trying to kill him.
Yeah, and who knows? Maybe somebody was. Some of Parsons' colleagues rejected this explanation, saying that he was very... two colleagues say that the Burmese Powder Company described Parsons' work habits as scrupulously neat and exceptionally cautious. The latter statement from chemical engineer George Santimers insisted the explosion must have come from beneath the floorboards, implying an organized plot to kill Parsons. Harding accepted that these inconsistencies were incongruous, but described the manner in which Parsons had stored his chemicals as criminally negligent, and noted that Parsons had previously been investigated by police for illegally storing chemicals at the parsonage. He also found a morphine-filled syringe at the scene, suggesting that Parsons had been under the influence of narcotics. The police saw insufficient evidence to continue the investigation, closed the case as an accidental death. Interesting. But we all know what really happened.
What happened? Tell us.
Oh, we know.
Tell me.
We were all there. We heard. We don't got to get into it again.
If you had to describe what happened,
You know what I think is interesting? You know what? I'll comment about this one thing that I realized while I was reading that. You want to know what that is?
What?
Whenever I hear of a really suspicious death anywhere, it doesn't matter. Like even if it most likely, let's say like it just only looks suspicious for like a very few reasons, or like maybe because of the connections of the person or whatever. I feel like 80% of the time, unless it's like something like a crash or like something crazy, or even with a crash, but like I'm saying like back in the day when they tried to kill the guy's wife who was gonna blow the whistle on like who the real Kennedy assassins were. They ended up like causing her plane to go down over Chicago.
Terrible.
Yeah, she was on the plane with a journalist, and they were actually gonna do the whole story about how that was actually happening. That's like a big thing.
Wow.
Yeah, plane crashed, and then no more, no muss, no fuss. But anyways, my point is that other than
How
like
did they make the plane crash?
I heard it was it might have been like a rocket or something like that, but who knows? Allegedly, it was just a freak plane crash, and there was no foul play involved. But it was just very strange for having like the wife of one of the Operation 40 members on, who happened to be divorcing her husband at the time, and told him that she was going to go to the press about the JFK assassination. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And she happened to be on a plane with a reporter who was going to go and write a story about the JFK assassination and what really happened. It's just a lot of interesting coincidences, But who knows what happened? But one thing I did know, the point I was trying to make earlier is the one thing I did notice about that story is that with most suspicious deaths, there's always like some kind of like opiate or barbiturate nearby. You know what I mean? You've got like Kurt Cobain, and sure, you can describe that as like he used that stuff a lot, so it makes sense that that would be around. But like a lot of the time when like you test out like these people, or they get like autopsies or whatever, they have like dangerous levels of the heroin or the this or the morphine or that, you know what I mean, in their system. So like what I'm thinking is that they drug up this person and leave them in a situation where they can't possibly get out if they're all drugged up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like an explosion or something like that. And I think that happens a lot of the time. Like, they'll drug up somebody. Maybe they'll kidnap somebody. They'll drug them up. And then they'll just...
Is that what you would do?
No, that's not what I would do. I'm just saying this seems like what would probably happen. They drug somebody. They kidnap them. They drug them. And then they put them in like a natural position of where they're at. And then make it look like maybe they just had issues. When in reality, they just did something a little crazy. All right.
You do this to people, don't you?
You do this to people, don't you? I'm not the government, so I don't.
Yeah, all right.
What do we got here? This guy is kind of an honorable mention. His name's Justin J.J. Humphrey. The reason why I mention him is he's not really that interesting. He's got a lot of wild ideas, but I think one of them is that he believes in Bigfoot, and he thinks that there should be like an official like Bigfoot hunting season.
That's
yeah,
stupid.
But
that's like you make it sound like they're a problem.
Yeah, I forgot. I think that was his deal, but I could be mistaken. But that might be the gist. He's some hardcore like right winger guy. We gotta give a shout out.
He just means that there should be a whole season where it's you're meant to be hunting Bigfoot, meaning you don't hunt anything else, so that you don't scare away the Bigfoot while you're looking for it.
No, I think it's more of like we have to prove the Bigfoot exists. Probably. Yeah, I think that's what it is.
Those people make me sick.
Those people make me sick. All right, we should probably talk about this next dude. Yeah, I'm not sure if you ever heard of this guy, but he's a pretty interesting fellow. Have you ever heard of Clay Tiffany?
No.
So he's kind of where crazy, kooky conspiracy theorists kind of come from. besides like Art Bell and shit like that, they kind of come from this guy a little bit. And there was actually there was a TV show on Adult Swim that was actually sort of based on this dude, and it was called Check It Out with Steve Brule, and it was John C. Riley
Steve
with
Brule?
like, yeah, Steve Brule, and it was John C. Riley with like really crazy hair, just acting like a weirdo on like a public broadcasting like TV show, like a fake show. But it was pretty funny. But it was basically based on this dude, and it was actually entirely inspired by this dude. But this dude was famous for like having his own public access show and basically like doing like talking about conspiracies and like crazy shit. In the village of Briarcliff Manor, a tony suburb outside New York City, everybody knew Clay Tiffany. Growing up in the 1960s, Tiffany was a Briarcliff Manor high school basketball legend. His name is still etched on a plaque in the trophy case that commemorates the school's 1,000-point scorers. By the time I met Tiffany in 2002, he was in his 50s, and Briarcliff Manor residents knew him as the village gadfly. Over 6 feet tall, white, and with an unruly crown of curly red hair, Clay Tiffany spent his days as a self-proclaimed independent journalist, uncovering local practices he considered unfair, unlawful, and complaining about them to local officials and at village council meetings. Tiffany also shared the fruits of his investigative labors on his remarkably named public access television show, Dirge for the Charlatans. On a March afternoon in 1997, Tiffany was pulled over by a Briarcliff Manor police officer he did not recognize. The officer, Nick Tartaglione, had recently been hired by the department. With bulging muscles and a deep tan, Tartaglione stuck out as much as Tiffany did in Briarcliff Manor. According to Tiffany, Tartaglione approached his car and said, I'm connected with the mob. I can have you taken care of any time I want. Feeling threatened, Tiffany got out of his car and, standing several feet away, said that he was afraid of Tartaglione, and he was going to flag down the next car he saw and give the driver the name of a friend to call. When Tiffany got a car to stop and started speaking with the driver, Officer Tartaglione grabbed Tiffany, slammed him into the police car, and handcuffed him. Tiffany quickly turned his investigative attentions to Tartaglione, and it turned out there was a lot to investigate. Tiffany learned that Tartaglione had beaten up people while employed as an officer in the neighborhood jurisdictions and had left those jobs under suspicious circumstances. Tiffany then started reporting that he found out Tartaglione on Dirge of Charlatans that apparently got under Tartaglione's skin. He started reporting on what he found out about Tartaglione on the Dirge. Over the next 2.5 years, Officer Tartaglione assaulted Tiffany 3 more times, the assaults growing more extreme with every encounter. The final time, Tartaglione maced Tiffany and punched and kicked him, yelling, you can't tell lies about me on your television show. Officer Tartaglione broke Tiffany's orbital bone and several ribs, landing him in the hospital.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's crazy. Tiffany sued Tartaglione in the village of Briarcliff Manor. During litigation, Tartaglione offered to settle the claims against him for $200,000. Soon thereafter, we wrote a letter to defense counsel explaining that Tiffany wanted to know where the money was coming from, Tartaglione himself or the village. I assumed the money was coming from Tartaglione. The village had fired Tartaglione and was arguing during litigation that his assaults of Tiffany were outside the scope of his employment. But in the end, after Tiffany had accepted the money, Briarcliff Manor revealed that its insurers had written the check. I was shocked. This is getting into about insurance. Yada, yada, yada. Oh, that was it? I thought there was more to the story than that. That ended so abruptly.
Well, some stories do.
Some stories do.
That's the end of the episode.
Nicholas Tartaglia.
What if we just stop?
That would be funny. No, well, let's do that after. Let's do a couple more.
Okay.
I'll cut myself out saying that, but let's do that.
You gotta put that whole story at the end.
Yeah, this guy Nicholas Well, you can just re-say it again after, in like a slightly different way. This guy Tartaglione is pretty interesting, actually. He was accused of harassment, stalking, and police brutality by a local activist and television show, Clay Tiffany. On April 11th, 2016, Tartaglione and 2 co-conspirators kidnapped and murdered 4 men in Orange County. The intended victim, 41-year-old Martin Luna, was murdered due to a drug trafficking-related money dispute between him and Tartaglione. The other 3 victims, 25-year-old Miguel Luna, 35-year-old Urbano Santiago, and 43-year-old Hector Gutierrez, were killed solely for being with Luna at the time of the ambush, and Tartaglione was sentenced to 4 consecutive life sentences on June 10th, 2024. I thought I heard of this guy before. Whoa, shit. This is why I've heard of this guy. While awaiting trial, Tartaglione was the cellmate of Jeffrey Epstein at the Metropolitan Correctional Center. On July 23rd,
Yeah, I thought that last
2019.
name. Wait, this is the same guy?
This is the guy that harassed Clay Tiffany was Jeffrey Epstein's cellmate.
Who's
That's
Clay
hilarious.
Tiffany again?
He's that guy that had that I just said who he was. What? I just told you the whole story. He had like a PBS fucking broadcast where he would talk about like
Yes,
weird
he's the guy
shit
that
going
Steve
on.
Rule's based on.
Yes, exactly.
Yes, I remember now.
Oh my god. Anyways, Clay Tiffany dispute and legal troubles. That's funny. How come Clay Tiffany doesn't have his own page, his own Wikipedia page? I thought he was famous enough. Yeah, whatever. Maybe we'll have Clay Tiffany on one of these days. All right.
It kind of is insane that that's the same person in the cell with Epstein.
Isn't it? That's what I'm saying.
Like, that's kind of weird, right?
It's a weird connection.
Why? Why do they do that?
Yeah. No, I agree that, well, he's a corrupt cop, so that's why. You know what I mean? So they must have wanted a little bit of corruption in that cell. More than they already had.
Is he still in prison?
Jeffrey Epstein?
No.
Tartaglione, I think he is.
Yeah.
I forgot his name. I just said it like 500 fucking times.
It's just a weird name.
It is. It is. I hate it, to be honest with you, because it's just so, like, it's so upsetting to say. Tartaglione. Like, it makes me, it just pulls me out of the moment to have to say this name. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I love Italian names, but this name just really, like, it's like,
It's like you made that up.
No, it's like Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Not you, but like he made that up.
Yeah. Well, it's like Arnold Schwarzenegger. You have to really say his name in order to say his name. You can't just be like, it doesn't roll off the tongue. What is it?
Taglione?
I mean, you could do that, but I wouldn't be, I wouldn't
say that to his face. Once he's out of prison.
Once he's out of prison. I mean, maybe you would. Maybe you'd try to be friends with him, you know what I mean?
I don't think we'd be in the same circles.
Oh, probably not. I don't think we'd be in the same. All right. Who should we do next? What should be... How about Donald Barr? Epstein confidant, first to hire him, and weirdo dad to Bill Barr.
Yeah. That guy is, very interesting person.
He is.
We've talked about him before, too. Just trying to wrap our heads around his book.
That's kind of what I really wanted to talk about, really, was that. But, we don't even really got to talk about him, but let's just mention that he had a book where it was about a group of elites that ran an underground sex trafficking ring on another planet, like a dune-like planet. And he basically said, I think blackmail was even involved in the story, too. But it was weird. It was a weird one.
Yeah, what a weird coincidence.
Yeah. Let's see. Sasha Riley. I gotta find out more about Sasha Riley. We gotta talk about Sasha Riley one of these days, though.
Who was that?
It's the person who he claims that Epstein and Trump assaulted him.
Yes.
Yeah, that's one of those things. I really want to talk about Frank Sturgis again, though. I feel like every time we try to talk about him, we don't finish. Do you remember who Frank Sturgis was?
No.
Frank Sturgis, I'll get you caught up to Watergate.
The current season of Watergate?
Well, so what happened was back in the 1940s and 50s, or like late 40s, early 50s, this guy named Frank Sturgis was basically sent over to Cuba in order to help Fidel Castro overthrow the current Cuban government, which was run by a guy named Batista. And what ended up happening was Fidel ended up taking over and basically kicking out all of the Americans that were already in Cuba that were trying to like run the show. But Batista was basically like on their asses. So basically, Fidel kind of fooled the American, like the CIA, and basically and the mob, because it was the mafia that was also involved with running a lot of like Havana and shit like that, Cuba. Because at the time, Havana, Cuba was actually kind of like another Las Vegas. Like a lot of people don't know that or forget or whatever. At the time, Havana, Cuba was like a wicked poppin' place. Anyways, so what ended up happening was Fidel Castro took power with the help of this group of mercenaries and basically ended up overthrowing Batista. And what ended up happening was Frank Sturgis ended up staying in Cuba and basically trying to, or at least getting sent back to Cuba back and forth in order to train rebels in order to overthrow Fidel Castro, who he helped install into power. So, like, over the years, he just kept, like, doing a bunch of shit that had to do with, like, overthrowing Fidel Castro. Fast forward to the early 60s, him and a group of guys got together in Miami and planned a thing in order to basically defend what happened in Cuba with the Bay of Pigs. Anyways, this dude, Frank Sturgis, he basically helped to kill JFK in 1963 in Dallas that day. He was also the one to help plan it with all those guys, E. Howard Hunt, Eugenio Martinez, James W. McCord, and who the fuck else? A bunch of just random, like, bunch of random dudes who basically helped plan a bunch of crazy shit. He was later on involved in the Watergate burglary with E. Howard Hunt. Later on, he was involved in Iran-Contra. This dude, I like to describe him as being like the he's kind of like the American James Bond, or he's kind of like a real life comedian from The Watchmen. I'm actually fairly certain that the comedian from The Watchmen might be slightly based on this guy. I might have heard that, but I could be mistaken about that.
That would be cool.
This guy, you remember when The Watchmen, when the comedian in the movie is like up on the grassy knoll, and he
Yeah.
well, I'm pretty sure that was like supposed to like emulate Frank Sturgis. That was supposed to be like, because Frank Sturgis was, I thought I heard that it was either him, that was him with the French gunman, or something like that. There was like a French gunman that apparently also fired some shots that day. But we should do a whole JFK episode. That would be good. Here's his involvement in mercenary group. Shortly after abandoning the Cuban Revolution, Sturgis organized the International Anti-Communist Brigade, a mercenary group intended to operate in the Caribbean and Central America. The group was connected to a plot to assassinate the Guatemalan president, Cagil Eugenio Legrand Garcia, through Jerry Patrick Hemming, head of a subgroup in the brigade known as the Intercontinental Penetration Force. Whoa, the Intercontinental Penetration Force. That sounds crazy. Members of the brigade,
That's because
including
it has
Sturgis,
the words penetration and force in the same sentence.
exactly.
Same name.
That's too much. That's too much penetration and way too much force.
Give up on one of the words.
Give up on one of intercontinental force, intercontinental penetration. I mean, it still sounds weird when you say it like that, but
Intercontinental combat. Internet. What was it again?
intercontinental Fuck, I forgot to. Hold on. Intercontinental Penetration Force. That's it. It's penetration.
Oh my god.
You can't forget the penetration. Intercontinental Penetration Force 5. Return of the penetration. This subgroup, the Penetration Force, was heavily connected to the assassination by Orleans Parish District Attorney Jim Garrison, but the suspicion was dropped when Hemming joined Garrison's investigation. That's funny. On June 17, 1972, Sturgis, Virgilio Gonzalez, Eugenio Martinez, Bernard Barker, and James W. McCord Jr. were arrested while installing electronic listening devices in the National Democratic Party campaign offices located at the Watergate office complex in Washington. The White House office telephone number of CIA officer E. Howard Hunt was found in address books of the burglars. That's hilarious. I did not know that. That's fucking hilarious. What fucking idiots would do that? Reporters were able to link the break-in to the White House. The burglars had successfully entered into the same location several weeks earlier, but returned to fix a malfunctioning device and to photograph more documents. Bob Woodward, a reporter working for the Washington Post, was told by a source, Deep Throat, who was employed by the government as senior aides of President Richard Nixon, had paid the burglars to obtain information about his political opponents. Now, I would like to mention something about that. Now, the official story goes just that Watergate was about, basically like, these guys snuck in to gather information about the Democratic Party, about where they were going and what they were going to do, and to, basically find any, what was the idea? Any, Cuban Democrat like link, basically to find like a communist link with the Democrats. It was a way to basically go after the Democrats without actually going after them. But here's what a lot of people, this is what I've heard, this is what a lot of people say, is that these group of guys specifically went in there and were hired by the CIA to go in there to help Nixon, yeah, but also as a way to also clean up the any information, because allegedly the heads of the Democratic Party or whatever, or the National Convention, or whoever they were breaking into, the Watergate, like this whole group, supposedly they were breaking in to steal documents back that actually like allegedly implicated the CIA in killing Kennedy. So that's like what the big conspiracy behind like Watergate is. And like people say, like the official story is they were just trying to get information on the Democrats in order to implicate them and shit, but it might have actually been the opposite, where they were trying to steal information that implicates the Republicans in killing Kennedy. And like Big Oil and the CIA and all these other guys. You follow me?
Yeah.
Either way, it would be a bad thing. That's why the Watergate burglary and the scandal was like such a big deal, because what it was is it was Nixon on the surface level, like non-conspiratorial, like non-conspiracy, like story, like historical. It was a way that Nixon was able to gather dirt and information on the Democrats in order to like actively go to the different places the Democrats were going to be, in order to basically like in order to basically show them up.
You were saying that they were the narrative is that they were there to steal information on the Dems, but really they were there to steal information on the Republicans.
Well, on themselves, not just the Republicans, but themselves, the CIA. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. The White House office telephone number of CIA officer E. Howard Hunt was found in address book. Yeah, funny shit. In January 1973, Sturgis, Hunt, Gonzalez, Martinez, Barker, and G. Gordon Liddy, who you may know as a famous actor, and James W. McCord were convicted of conspiracy, burglary, and wiretapping. Sturgis was convicted in 1973 with Max Gonzalez and Jerry Buchanan in a federal court in Miami of transporting cars stolen in Texas into Mexico. This prompted the DEA Acting Regional Director David W. Costa to send a letter to Judge C. Clyde Atkins on March 10, 1975, indicating that Sturgis had been covertly cooperating with the DEA. Sturgis served 14 months in a minimum security prison in Eglin, Florida. After leaving prison, Sturgis served as a Miami police informant and continued providing intelligence on the anti-Castro activities of Dr. Orlando Bosch. It was just like some random terrorist dude in Miami. St. George's article was published in True Magazine in August 1974. Sturgis claims that the Watergate burglars had been instructed to find a particular document in the Democratic Party offices. This was a secret memorandum from the Castro government that included details of CIA covert actions. Sturgis said that the Castro government suspected the CIA did not tell the whole truth about these operations, even to the American political leaders. In response to Sturgis' repeated braggadocio to the news media, the CIA issued a public statement on May 30th, 1975, indicating that he had never been connected with them in any way. That's funny. In an interview with the New York Daily News reporter Paul Mesky on June 20th, 1975, Sturgis stated, "I was a spy. I was involved in assassination plots and conspiracies to overthrow several foreign governments, including Cuba, Panama, Guatemala, and the Dominican Republic and Haiti. I smuggled arms and men into Cuba for Castro and against Castro. I broke into intelligence files. I stole and photographed secret documents. That's what spies do." Sturgis was denied a pardon by President Jimmy Carter.
He's like, yeah, dude, I'm not gonna just say that's okay. The guy was like, yeah, could you actually pardon me? Why?
Well, it's funny because Jimmy Carter is like the last type of person to pardon him, because all the presidents before him would have pardoned him, like Nixon, Lyndon Johnson, Gerald Ford, all these guys would have definitely pardoned him. But Jimmy Carter would not have done it. Even Ronald Reagan after would have pardoned him, but not Jimmy Carter.
Jimmy Carter's the man.
Jimmy Carter's cool, but he was a little bit of a wimp. That's what sucks about him. But
he was just there, he did his job.
But yeah, exactly. That was his thing.
And when things got hot, people were like, well, let's get this loudmouth in there. It's like, just let Jimmy do his job.
John F. Kennedy assassination allegations. Sturgis has been the subject of various allegations regarding the assassination of JFK. He also made claims that other individuals were involved. Early allegations, Sturgis as one of the three tramps. The Dallas Morning News, the Dallas Times-Herald, and Fort Worth Star-Telegram photographed three transients under police escort near the Texas School Book Depository shortly after the assassination of Kennedy. The men later became known as the Three Tramps. According to Vincent Bugliosi, allegations that these men were involved in a conspiracy originated from theorist Richard E. Sprague, who compiled the photographs in 1966 and 67 and subsequently turned them over to Jim Garrison during his investigation of Clay Shaw. Appearing before a nationwide audience on the December 31st, 1968 episode of The Tonight Show, Garrison held up a photo of the three and suggested they were involved in the assassination. Later in 1974, assassination researchers Alan J. Weberman and Michael Canfield compared photographs of the men to people they believed to be suspects involved in a conspiracy, and so the two of the men were Watergate burglars Hunt and Sturgis. Comedian and civil rights activist Dick Gregory helped bring national media attention to the allegations against Hunt and Sturgis in 1975 after obtaining comparison photographs from Weberman and Canfield. Immediately after obtaining the photographs, Gregory held a press conference that received considerable coverage, and his charges were reported in Rolling Stone and Newsweek. The Rockefeller Commission reported in 1975 that they investigated the allegation that Hunt and Sturgis, on behalf of the CIA, participated in the assassination of Kennedy. The final report of that commission stated the witnesses who testified that the derelicts bore resemblance to Hunt or Sturgis were, quote, not shown to have any qualification on photo identification beyond that possessed by an average layman. Now, I'd like to just state that this was the Rockefeller Commission, the commission that was created by Nelson Rockefeller, who, if you look into the Kennedy assassination, may or may not have had something to do with a lot of that stuff. But that's just my own little 2 cents there. And I mean, the Rockefellers, they're just, they're not the best. Anyways, their report also stated the FBI agent Lyndall L. Schenefeld, a nationally recognized expert in photo identification and photo analysis with the FBI Photographic Laboratory, had concluded from photo comparison that none of the men were Hunt or Sturgis. In 1979, the House Select Committee on Assassinations reported that forensic anthropologists had again analyzed and compared the photographs of the tramps with those of Hunt and Sturgis, as well as the photographs of Thomas Valet and Daniel Carswell and Fred Chrisman. According to the committee, only Chrisman resembled any of the tramps. And Chrisman's a guy that we've actually talked about before here and there. He's involved in the Kennedy assassination, but he's also got a bunch of.
Do you think there was someone in a room were like heroes for this country for what we're about to do?
Well, yeah, that's
like
these
the world
guys.
will never know it, but like we saved America.
That was these guys.
Yeah.
These guys all got together right before Dallas in Miami, like a week before Dallas happened in Miami. They all got
No
together.
one will ever know the thinking
what
behind it.
I mean, that's pretty much what happened. Well, you want to hear what Sturgis says in his own words? Sturgis makes his own allegations.
Sweet.
Who knows if this is even legit? 'Cause he's kind of a blowhard, it seems like. In 1976, Sturgis claimed that he was assigned to investigate any possible role the Cuban exiles may have played in the assassination of Kennedy. He stated that his investigation revealed that 10 weeks prior to the assassination, Jack Ruby met with Fidel Castro in Havana, Cuba, to discuss the removal of the president in order to neutralize the threat of the invasion by the United States. According to Sturgis, others at the meeting included Raul Castro, Che Guevara, and Ramiro Valdez, and an Argentine woman who was believed to have been a Russian KGB agent. He said that Ruby had also made several trips to Havana in the months before the assassination in order to arrange deals in which arms would be sold to Cuba and in which illegal drugs from Cuba would be smuggled into the United States. Sturgis also claimed that Lee Harvey Oswald was involved in the conspiracy and that other governments either were involved in the conspiracy or knew of the conspiracy. He said that this investigation did not reveal that the Cuban exiles were involved in the assassination. Now, I just want to say something right there, because he did a lot right there to say a lot of bullshit, but he also he said some things that were kind of true. Like Frank Sturgis, I'm saying. So,
Yeah.
he wanted to try and blame it on Jack Ruby because Jack Ruby was taking all the heat at the time for killing Lee Harvey Oswald. But you know why Jack Ruby killed Lee Harvey Oswald? It was most likely because Lee Harvey Oswald was going to snitch on the CIA working with these Cuban exiles and working with the mafia, because the mafia got kicked out of Cuba by Castro. They wanted to get re-put into Cuba, so they kept trying to work with the CIA, Meyer Lansky and Lucky Luciano, in order to basically get Castro out. So Jack Ruby, being like an associate to like Lucky Luciano and all these guys, they probably wanted to have Jack Ruby basically clean up the mess, basically. And him trying to say that all of this was a plot by Jack Ruby and Fidel Castro in order to take out the president is just the biggest heap of bullshit that there ever is. And all he's doing is he's just taking all of the stink off of the United States government. At least that's what I think. Sturgis declined to specifically identify the sources of the information, but noted that he said that included the members of the anti-Castro Cuban underground. He further claimed that the associates of this involved in intelligence had independently confirmed his report. And according to Sturgis, his report was made in early 1964 and that it was given to a certain American intelligence agencies, including the Senate Internal Security Committee. He said they did not know if it had been forwarded to the Warren Commission. Similarly, Sturgis said that the information about the 1964 reports had been provided to the Rockefeller Commission as well as the Church Committee's intelligence, but that he did not know if they received the actual reports. And Sturgis stated that he was revealing that he made the reports in order to refute the leftist element in the country, who claimed the CIA was involved in the assassination of Kennedy. Jack Ruby's brother Earl responded to the allegations as outlandish, ridiculous, and absolutely false. That's almost like, hey, Jack Ruby's brother Earl coming out and saying that is almost like Mark Epstein saying that. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like how Mark Epstein was just like, yeah, this is a bunch of bullshit. My brother Jeffrey Epstein was just a child rapist and all this shit. He had blackmail on all these rich guys. What is it, too? All these guys lying about him. Like, he's
It happened
basically...
so long ago.
Yeah, it happened so long ago. Oh, my God. Yeah, he threw good parties on the island. What are you gonna say? In September, Marita Lorenz, Sturgis with Oswald. In September 1977, Marita Lorenz told Paul Mescal of the New York Daily News that she met Oswald in the fall of 1963 at an Operation 40 safe house in the Little Havana section of Miami. According to Lorenz, she met him again before the Kennedy assassination in 1963 in the house of Orlando Bosch, with Sturgis, Pedro Luis Diaz-Lanz, and 2 other Cubans present. She said the men studied Dallas street maps and said that she suspected they were planning on raiding an arsenal. Lorenz stated that she joined the men traveling to Dallas in 2 cars carrying rifles and scopes, but flew back to Miami the day after they arrived. In response to her allegations, Sturgis said he did not recall ever meeting Oswald and reiterated his previous denials of being involved in the conspiracy to kill Kennedy. On October 31st, 1977, Sturgis was arrested in Lorenz's apartment after Lorenz told police that Sturgis threatened her in an attempt to force her to change her testimony to federal investigators. In an interview with Steve Dunleavy of the New York Post shortly after he posted bail, Sturgis said that he believed communist agents had pressured Lorenz into making the accusations against him. Later that week in Manhattan Criminal Court, charges against Sturgis were dropped after the prosecutor told the judge that his office found no evidence of coercion or harassment. Recalling the series of events, Timothy Krause of the Village Voice described Sturgis and Lorenz as 2 of the most notoriously unreliable sources in America. And I want to say something about Marita Lorenz real quick because she's a famous figure in conspiracy history. Because what she ended up doing was she was one of Fidel Castro's mistresses / lovers or what have you, and she was involved in a plot to actually kill him at one point. But that's a story for another day. Yeah, she actually
Can't trust anyone.
Yeah, well, what's interesting is you kind of can because at one point he was going to get poisoned in like wine that she was serving him or something like that. And I think he knew that she was working with the CIA because he knew in this moment, according to like how like the story goes. But basically, like, he asked her, he was like, hey, like, this wine that you just gave me, is this spiked with poison? And she basically, like, he pried it out of her that, like, that it was a poisoned, like, drink. And, yeah, they ended up, like, making love there after finding out that she was going to poison him, but she was honest with him about it.
Some bullshit.
Isn't that crazy? No, that's true.
This is what they told people in the past, because this is like the type of books they were reading.
This was a real thing. This was a real thing. Marita Lorenz.
The past is so fake.
German woman who had an affair with Fidel Castro in 1959 and in January 1960 was involved in an assassination attempt by the CIA on Castro's life. I'm telling you. No, this is just like the cool shit that happened, like in real life. In 1977, Lorenz told Paul Mescal, we already read a lot of this. This is like almost word for word. Lorenz testified about the Kennedy assassination plot before the House committee, whatever. In February 1985, attorney Mark Lane read a deposition that Lorenz provided in E. Howard Hunt's libel suit against the Liberty Lobby's tabloid, The Spotlight. Where is the thing about Castro? Here we go. In February 1959, weeks after the conclusion of the Cuban Revolution, Lorenz arrived in Havana with her father on board the MS Berlin. Fidel Castro and his men visited the ship, and Castro took a liking to Lorenz. After dinner, the Berlin set sail for New York. Lorenz disembarked in Manhattan, where she would be living with her brother Joachim, a student at Columbia University. A few days after she arrived, Castro called Lorenz. She had given him Joachim's home number on a matchbox before parting ways and said he was sending a plane to fly her back to Cuba. A jeep picked Lorenz up at the other end and drove her to the Havana Hilton, which Castro repurposed as his base of operations. She claims then to have lived with Castro for several months, engaging in a sexual relationship. There are unconfirmed theories about whether she became pregnant with his child during this time, but no child was born.
Who do they think is Fidel Castro's
Kid?
secret kid?
Justin Trudeau.
Yeah.
Yeah. She left the island and joined anti-Castro activists in Florida. Her later testimony named Francisco Furioni as the CIA agent who recruited her to assassinate Castro, and that this was an alias for Frank Sturgis. Frank Fiorini Sturgis. She received poison pills that she was to put in Castro's food. Back in Cuba in 1960, she did not deliver the pills but told Castro about the plot, claiming that she still loved him. She left the island and so I guess that's how it went. She left. I kind of hammed it up a little bit. She left the island and visited Castro one last time in 1981. She spent 10 days in Cuba in 1988. According to Lorenz, in March 1961, she met deposed Venezuelan dictator Marcos Perez Jimenez, introduced to her as General Diaz at a residence in Miami Beach, Florida, while working as a courier for the International Anti-Communist Brigade, and she said she was to collect a $200,000 contribution from Perez Jimenez for her group. Lorenz said, "He chased me around for 6 weeks." Lorenz claimed that Castro and Perez Jimenez each fathered a child with her. In August 1963, a paternity suit Lorenz filed against Perez Jimenez briefly held up his extradition to Venezuela. She claimed to have been with Frank Sturgis at a meeting with the CIA head in Miami, which also included E. Howard Hunt, which Frank stated was for planning right before the JFK assassination. Yeah, a lot of interesting people. We still have a lot more to go through with the JFK assassination, but we'll probably do that another day. But there's just a lot of interesting people out there in the conspiracy realm. You know?
Is Frank Sturgis in a movie? Is there any movie featuring him?
Like him as an actor, or like him as a character?
History?
Like a movie about him?
Not necessarily, because I don't think I've ever heard of a movie about him. Just like, has he ever appeared in anything?
I mean, him. Do you mean has he ever acted in anything, or has
No.
his? All right, so you're saying like have they ever made any movies about him or the people around him?
The people, like, because sounds like he's in like a lot of history. Like, are there any JFK movies?
Yeah, they didn't even get into Iran-Contra.
Yeah, like, there's no movies about any of this stuff, and then they're like, oh, hey, it's Frank.
Well, no,
He's like, hey, what's up, guys?
Actually, so there is a movie, or sorry, there's a TV show that I highly recommend everybody that listens to this watch. I mean, if you're a fan of conspiracy theories, anybody listening to this would love this show. It's a one-off miniseries that was just made recently, like last few years. It was called White House Plumbers, and it was starring Woody Harrelson and Justin Theroux. Woody Harrelson plays E. Howard Hunt, and Justin Theroux plays G. Gordon Liddy, and it's about the planning and breaking into the Watergate, building. And they actually have a guy who plays Frank Sturgis, who's like pretty much perfect as Frank Sturgis. He just plays like an asshole.
It's an asshole name.
It is
for a person who I assume is a huge asshole.
It's like a very American asshole name. Like Frank Sturgis sounds just like some like grunt.
It's hard to believe that this man named Frank Sturgis was just in Cuba, just teaching people how to do things, how to defend their country, how to take over their country. What side are we on?
Look at this picture. Are you looking at the thing?
No.
Look at the. All right, look at the thing. I'm gonna show you a picture of Frank Sturgis in Cuba.
Looking at the thing.
All right, this right here is Frank Sturgis in Cuba.
There's no stream on right now. I can't see anything you're trying
Oh,
to show me.
I thought that there was. My bad. Oh, it's because my computer turned off. That's why. Come on, share your screen. This right here is Frank Sturgis standing on top of a mass grave in Cuba while he teaches Cuban rebels how to fire guns and shit.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a badass.
What about? Well, he's like I said, he's pretty
This
much.
guy next to him just like this guy's a fucking asshole.
Oh, dude, I guarantee you that Frank Sturgis was a total dickhead to this dude standing next to him.
I bet he's done awful crimes.
Oh, he's probably like, dude. When I said that he was based on the comedian was based on him,
Yeah,
I
dude, you're totally right. He is just like the comedian. I can imagine
he is.
exactly what you're saying right now.
Look at it. It says Sturgis with a July 26 movement armband stands on a mass grave of 71 Batista supporters at San Juan Hill.
Jesus.
Yep. Yeah, he is. He's. I guarantee you that there was some connection there. Is the comedian based on Frank Sturgis? No, he's based on Peacemaker. We already knew that.
Maybe it's just like an archetype that they both fill.
They fall into.
But I don't know. Maybe it is.
Oh, this is
You have
funny.
to ask Alan Moore.
This is here. Somebody did a thing, and it's the Watchmen's comedian based on a true story ? Whether intentional or not, the Watchmen character comedian seems to fit the life and actions of real life assassin named Frank Sturgis. So somebody actually made a YouTube video about it. I mean, he does. He seems like that's along those lines. Honestly, if they made another Watchmen documentary, if they made another Watchmen movie, or like a television series that like went through the like Watchmen like previous era, I would want somebody to play like a young comedian, more like a Frank Sturgis type.
Dude, they should just make a Frank Sturgis action series, but make it like a fucking crazy bleak comedy at the same time.
I mean, that's basically what you're describing was kind of along the lines of what White House Plumbers was, because it was Woody Harrelson and Justin Theroux, just like
Was it an action?
it was kind of, I would call it, I wouldn't say it was, there was some action in it, but I would say it was more like noir comedy drama. Because, like, there was a lot of, like, funny, quirky moments, especially, like, between Woody Harrelson and Justin Theroux. But, like, there was, like a lot of darkly funny moments. And Frank Sturgis' character was funny, too. But, like, it was, like, really dark. But it could be really... they could make something that's a lot funnier with Frank Sturgis, honestly. I think you've got something there. 1924 to 93. This is why I wanted to talk about this guy for a while, because he's an interesting character, and we've got more interesting characters coming down the pipeline.
This is As the World Burns, character of the week.
Frank Sturgis, the character of the week.